Transmission begins. Space lane traffic is advised to stay away from Sol 3, also known as Earth. Pilots are warned Sol 3 is entering terminal extinction. Planet Earth is closed.
And that jarring cacophony, ending there with the Series 4 version of the Doctor Who theme with David Tennant, tells you you're listening to the Power of 3 podcast. It's our last episode of 2025, and we're going to be featuring the 10th Doctor. Why not? As we look back at one of the original novels featuring this incarnation. I'm Kenny Smith, and today's episode is actually one that is probably technically titled episode 166 of the Power of 3. Yes, if you've been with us for a long time, you may remember that way back in 2023, episode 161 looked at Judgment of the Judoon, the original novel. 162 looked at the Slitheen Excursion. 163 featured Prisoner of the Daleks. 164 featured Autonomy, and 165 looked at the Krillitane Storm, but sadly, at the time we weren't able to get hold of the author to speak about the next book in that sequence, which was, of course, The Taking of Chelsea 426, written by David Llewelyn, and thankfully, David is with us today. Hurrah! It was published on the 3rd of September 2009, and this was the 34th novel in the BBC New Series Adventures range, featuring not only the 10th Doctor, but the Sontarans. Of course, this was one of the adventures released as part of the gap year of 2009, where the 10th Doctor was travelling solo, and BBC Books published 6 books throughout that year to keep things going between Planet of the Dead and the Waters of Mars, so there was plenty happening in that time. It was also given an audiobook release in September 2010, and it was read by Christopher Ryan. So let's start off by taking a look at the glorious cover. 10th Doctor there in his blue suit with his maroon shirt and tie on. There's a spaceship in the background, looks like it's like a space island, and you can see there's lots of greenery, like a lovely island inside a spaceship setting with a big artificial dome over it. Then behind the Doctor we can see there's some plant life, and it looks almost like the Eden Project. And there, over on the right of the image, there's a Sontaran holding its weapon and letting off a blast of plasma energy fire. Looks fantastic. It's like a Ghostbuster gun. Looks brilliant, and well done to Lee Binding for that one. Let's have a look at the back cover, and it tells us: the Chelsea Flower Show, hardly the most exciting or dangerous event in the calendar, or so the Doctor thinks. But this is Chelsea 426, a city-sized future colony floating on the clouds of Saturn, and the flowers are much more than they seem. As the Doctor investigates, he becomes more and more worried. Why is shopkeeper Mr. Pemberton acting so strangely? And what is Professor Wilberforce's terrible secret? They are close to finding the answers when a familiar foe arrives, and the stakes suddenly get much higher. The Sontarans have plans of their own, and they're not here to arrange flowers. What could possibly be going on? Well, why don't we pause briefly and have an excerpt from the audiobook, which is read by the brilliant Christopher Ryan.
Sedgefield looked up through the domed glass ceiling of his office. The Sontaran ship was now hovering in orbit only a few hundred meters away. He had little doubt that they could destroy the whole of Chelsea 426 in the blink of an eye if they wanted to. Do I have your word? He asked, finally looking Cade in the eye. Of course, sir, said Cade. A Sontaran's word is his bond. Not strictly true, that, is it? Said a voice from the other side of the office. Cade and the mayor turned to see Colonel Sarg entering the room with a prisoner. Who is this? Cade snapped. We arrested him nearby, sir, said Sarg, nudging his prisoner forward by digging the barrel of his rifle into the man's back. He demanded he be allowed to speak to you. Cade snorted dismissively. Oh, did he now? He turned to the prisoner. "And who are you exactly?" "Oh, I'm the doctor, and you are?" "I am General Cade of the 4th Sontaran Intelligence Division." "The 4th Sontaran Intelligence Division?" asked the doctor. "Yes," grunted Cade. "You have heard of us?" "No," said the doctor. "No, not at all. Just seems like a bit of an oxymoron, if you ask me." "Well, I didn't," snapped Cade. "Did you say that you are the doctor?" "Yep," replied the doctor. "That's me." It was then that the Sontaran did something the doctor clearly hadn't expected. He smiled. "Well," said Cade, still beaming, "that really is quite something, is it not?" "Oh," said the doctor, shifting awkwardly. "Is it?" "We have travelled so far for this mission, and here you are, the doctor." Cade now began pacing around the room, looking up at the doctor as if he were a specimen in a museum. "Fascinating," he said. "Absolutely fascinating." He turned to Sarg. "Colonel Sarg, do you know who this is?" "No, sir," replied Sarg. "I hadn't seen him before his arrest, sir." "This," said Cade, "is the Doctor. A face-changer who travels through time. Our race have encountered him many times, usually within this system, and he has, without fail, bested us. So far. Quite remarkable. Quite remarkable." "Right," said the doctor. "Well, now that we've got the introductory chit-chat over and done with, what are you doing here?" Cade suddenly lashed out with his baton, hitting the doctor in the arm. "Ow!" the doctor yelled. "Please understand," said Cade, "that my respect for you as an adversary does not allow you to address me as you would a subordinate or a small child." "Oh, understood," said the doctor, still holding his arm and wincing. "We are here," Cade continued, "because our enemy, the Rutan host, is using this facility as a staging post for a counterattack upon Sontar." "The Rutans!" said the doctor, his face lighting up. "I knew it! I knew it was the Rutans! It was the carbon level far too high for a crinoid. And then the speech thing with the words, 'That will be agreeable.' Pure Rutan slip-up, that one. Pure good old-fashioned—" "Be quiet!" shouted Cade, lifting up the baton but holding back from hitting the doctor a second time. "As I was saying, the Rutans are using this facility as a staging post for a counterattack upon Sontar." "Permission to speak?" said the doctor, holding up his hand. "Permission granted." "A counterattack? What have you done to them lately? I mean, apart from a war spanning 50 millennia and all the rest of it." "Our attempt," said Cade, "to utilize the Earth as a breeding center for further armies. When the Rutans discovered that Earth was to become a cloning facility for the Sontaran Empire, they planted a trap on a neighboring world. This world. A sentient spore that, when brought into a habitable environment, would grow into plants, producing further spores. These spores, Doctor, are the Rutans themselves." "Okay," said the doctor. "I think I'm with you so far, but can't the Rutans shape-shift? Why go to all this bother to get breathed in by humans or Sontarans or whoever when they could have just turned themselves into humans or Sontarans?" "We are not as primitive as you think, Doctor. Their technology was crude and often fallible. We have the technology to tell Sontaran from Rutan, regardless of shape and size. The Rutans are a breed of parasites, Doctor. For them, it was far more fitting to exploit a host. In their plan, those hosts would have been Sontarans from the nearby clone world that was once Earth. In the event, the birthing planet was not to happen, and the humans got here first." The doctor allowed himself a moment's thought. Okay, he said. "But that means you're unable to scan for anyone who might have breathed in the Rutan spore, doesn't it?" "Quite right, Doctor."
Thank you for that, Chris. And he'll be back later on with a second reading. should point out The Taking of Chelsea 426 is still available from BBC Audio. This was one of the full novel narrations rather than the edited ones, and it's on 4 discs. It's also in the 10th Doctor novels, Volume 4, along with Autonomy and The Krillitane Storm, and that's still available from BBC Audiobooks as a physical purchase and indeed a download. So, let's welcome the author now and speak to David Llewelyn.
So I'm David Llewelyn. I'm the author of The Taking of Chelsea 426.
Fantastic. So how did the invitation to write a 10th Doctor novel come about?
I came about following my Torchwood novel, which came out the year before. And then asked to do a Doctor Who novel, and I just jumped at the chance.
Can't blame you. So what had been your experience in your writing career before this, and what had brought you to the attention of BBC Books?
I think my first novel, 11, came out 2006.
Mm-hmm.
I knew Brian Minchin already. He'd worked for a friend of mine a couple of years earlier. He mentioned me to Gary Russell. He said there's a young author could be good for Torchwood. I think a bit various ideas which were terrible. Then we came up with them. At one point, there's one that shot Mr. Sin out of taking it out of also Talons of Wang Chang coming back, which is a terrible idea, which didn't end up making it. They'd asked me to pitch for a novel. I came up with the idea of Stray's Memory.
I see.
And he liked that. I think they liked having a Cardiff writer doing the novels, because I knew the city quite well. Was able to incorporate bits of Cardiff's history into it as well.
I suppose that's the thing, you'll know all these wee bits and local colloquialisms and things like that as well.
Yeah. I knew about the Cardiff Blitz and knew that Neville Street had been really badly hit, so I included that in it. I used to walk down Neville Street. You could see halfway through where the streets go in the buildings from Edwardian post-war.
That's amazing. It's a beautiful city. I love coming to visit Cardiff.
That was part of my journey in and out of Cardiff, going down Neville Street, so I knew that quite well.
Mm-hmm. I haven't read the novel in a few years, but I do remember it feeling evocative and thought, yes, this is accurate. This is the Cardiff.
No, the other thing I did in it as well was include 2 of my dad's old cars in the car chase scene in it. Jack drives a Triumph GT6. And he used to buy a Rover P6 from his dad used to drive as well.
Well, that's nice, putting in things that at least you know, and you know what they sound like, and that makes them even more authentic, that engine sound, and how cold they could be in the winter as well, with frozen windows inside. Yeah, I remember them far too well, sadly. My dad had a car called a Simca. I think it was an Eastern European one. EVD 434K was the registration. I have no idea why I remember that. Maybe because it finished in a K. I don't know. But it must have been a real delight then, having done the spin-off show, to be asked to do a novel based on the mother show, as it were.
Yeah. At the time, I was going through old Doctor Who with my friend Tim, who's sadly left us now. We had a load on video and stuff. We used to watch some of the classic series, which I called my Who Mitzvah. Because I'd been a fan as a kid. Then obviously didn't watch it whilst I was off there so much. Then only on video. There was lots of stuff I hadn't seen. Even though I had vague memories of it, I had vague memories of things like the Daleks one, where Peter Davison throws a Dalek out of Shad Thames, and the window on Shad Thames.
Yeah.
I was going out with the guy who lived in East London in 2005 when the series came back, and I said, as we were walking around Shad Thames, he and I were walking around Shad Thames, I said, this was the Doctor pushed a Dalek out the window. He said, what's a Dalek? And about a week later, the Dalek was on the front page of Radio Times. I was like, that's what the thing I was talking about.
That's just, the timing's perfect there. That's amazing. Yeah. Yes, I remember finding that location completely by chance because I was visiting my friend in London, and I was walking to his work.
You've seen it in so many films like Pool of London and stuff. You've seen it in so many films,
particularly that area. But it's very hard not to imagine that music from Resurrection of the Daleks when you're walking through, because I know I certainly did. I'm now playing it in my head. I better move on.
Yeah. I've gone back and rewatched it again.
Yep. And coming
many times. It's my earliest Doctor Who TV memory, with vague memories of the tail end of Tom Baker as well.
Yeah.
The main thing, I'm looking now to see the Doctor Who 1977 now, which should be around my auntie's house. I used to read it with her at my auntie's house. She had kept a copy there for all her nephews to read. Just remember being absolutely terrified by it. I then bought a second-hand copy because I had such evocative memories of it.
It's a great read. Some of the artwork in there is absolutely terrifying. It's like the artists and drugs. But,
obviously, I did rewatch. The most recent rewatch was when BBC4 showed The Sea Devils on Sunday.
Yes.
Which is great.
A fantastic new edit.
I'm also a bit Third Doctor and Katie Manning as well.
Always good fun. My daughter's named after Katie Manning. So she's Katie, not Manning. But yeah, it's a very, very cruel thing to do, call your child Manning. Anyway, so when this book commission came about from Justin Richards, were the Sontarans handed to you, or were you told pick an old monster?
I think it was a kind of pick an old monster. He wanted a classic monster for that series of books. So then I went back and watched kind of ones where the Root Nose came into it. I think the idea came to me actually. It was during my kind of partying days, when I was partying a lot more than I do now, certainly. I had a really late night one night and just kind of drifting off trying to come up with ideas. Obviously, they'd asked me to do a Doctor Who book. I used to find my best ideas sometimes came to me at something like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, if I'd had a bit of a late night, or maybe early hours in the morning, just when I was waking up after a heavy night. I think the first, just 3 words went, it's not 3 words, it's actually Chelsea Flower Show in space is 4 words. Chelsea Flower Show in space popped into my head.
But then that is such a Russell T Davies thing to do. You've got something familiar and you just specify it for want of a word.
Chelsea Flower Show. So then I had to come up, why would it be called Chelsea? And then obviously I was a big fan of the film that had taken Pelham 1, 2, 3, mainly because of David Shaw's soundtrack.
Yep.
Being a big fan of that film, so the title popped into my head. As I was just rereading the opening chapters, all the kind of names are from Ealing comedies.
Ah.
Professor Wilberforce is named after Mrs. Wilberforce in Lady Killers. The shop owner, Mr. What's his name, is named after Stanley Holloway's character in Passport to Pimlico.
Oh, that's good. That's kind of trivia that I like. That's the thing that appeals to me. This was, of course, the first time the Sontarans and the Rootans had met in a novel since Shakedown by Terrance Dicks.
Yeah.
Which was quite exciting. And of course, the fact that the Rootans are completely unexpected.
I was kind of in touch with Terrance Dicks. I think we swapped emails for a bit, just for me to say thank you, vice versa.
That's not a bad thing to do, swapping emails with a childhood hero.
Yeah.
He's some man, that Terrance of ours. So you've got this fantastic setup here. And how did you find writing for the Tennant Doctor?
It was enormous fun. It was fun just trying to get his speech patterns right. I'm always kind of quite keen on trying to get speech accurate to who the characters are, I think.
It felt very authentically Tennant to me, just sort of reading it as sort of you could hear him saying every single line. And I think that's...
What I used to do, I had a friend, my friend Tim lived at I used to go around and read it out loud to him, chapter by chapter. The other thing that helped was just coming with cliffhanger endings to each chapter.
Yeah.
I think because we were watching the classic series, trying to imagine the scream at the end credits coming in at the end of each chapter.
That's a good way to build it up. That's a pretty smart way. I think that his relationship with the younger characters, Vienna and Jake Carstairs, I think that's really...
They named after my godson at the time. My godson, his sister had just been born. She was about to be born. She was about the same age as my nephew. When his mother said, what should we call your sister? He knew it was going to be a girl. He said, Vienna. He came up with the name Vienna. That's actually now her middle name. She's Ella Vienna Mogridge as a result of that.
Oh, wow. That's better than my daughter was going to suggest. The name of baby SpongeBob for my eldest niece and baby Skate.
I'm surprised my godson did get massively into SpongeBob around that time as well.
Oh, Katie also suggested that when my youngest niece Lily was born, she suggested Skateboard would be a good name because it's different.
Skateboard.
Yeah, I know, children and their thought processes. But how did you?
I think the book is actually, at the time, obviously my niece at the time, she was too young to have a book dedicated, but she'd been on the scene then, I would include it as well, but it's dedicated to my nephew, niece and my godson.
Oh,
my nephew, my godson and his sister.
I think having those younger characters obviously were good audience identification points for the younger readers.
I think those three kids kind of came along at a difficult time in life as well, because we'd lost my mum in 2003.
Oh.
I think having young people in my life was really important at the time, which I call them saviors of the universe. And obviously, that was a little nod to Flash Gordon.
Yeah. Oh, that's a lovely touch when you have that sort of that thing that you can have other family around, because I know that was having Katie around was good when I lost my mum. So yeah, it was.
My mum was a big Doctor Who fan as well, so there's that emotional side to it as well.
Yeah, my mum introduced me to the show. She used to like Tom Baker, and it was because my dad would always say, "Go and get your mum, tell her that's her program."
My mum was such a fan. We did not watch the Colin Baker years. She loved Peter Davison so much, she just refused to watch the Colin Baker years.
I think that was a bit of an extreme reaction. Poor Colin.
But then she came back for the TV movie, no surprises there, because Paul McGann was in it. You'd watch the Monocle Mutiny,
yeah. There's a bit of a theme emerging here. Peter Davis and Paul McGann's and handsome young men in their 30s.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
I love it. So how did you find writing for the Sontarans? Because given that these are slightly different Sontarans in that they're obviously a scientific expeditionary force and they're not looking to kill the Doctor, they just let him go about his business because they're that confident in what they're doing.
Kind of interesting just to write for them and writing on in that setting as well, I think.
Yeah, having them in a different kind of world, and particularly with the threat being a different kind of threat from the Rutans, using space pollen effectively.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a nice touch. Did not see that coming. I remember, in fact, when I reread it, I'd actually forgotten. Was that, of course. So quite a nice thing to.
It's a kind of body snatchers thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Which I'm a big fan of the Donald Sutherland version.
Oh yeah. Show me somebody who isn't, and I'll show you somebody who's not alive. They're good. There's also some quite brutal deaths as well for some innocent people who just end up being eliminated.
Yeah. That's definitely the influence of Russell, I think, on that. He can be merciless.
Yeah, I think that was Alice, Wendell, and Professor Wilberforce just turned to dust just like that. And poor old Alice, she's such a lovely character at the start. You think, she's really nice. She's because I remember thinking she's like possible companion of the story material. Then she's atomized. So you swine, you absolute swine. I suppose that's a good thing to do. You audiences have their expectations and then to subvert them and do something different. I think that you probably got a lot of fun writing the dialogue between General Cade and Colonel Sark, and of course their duel that they have as well. That conflict between them, because I think that's the thing about Sontarans, unlike other monsters, is that they have these individual personalities.
Yeah.
I think that they're definitely up there as good characters. Had you gone back to rewatch the previous Sontaran stories?
I think I did go through all of them eventually.
There's so many different types, and tall ones, short ones, clever ones, dumb ones, and cockney ones.
There's a weird thing with the stories go down as the prosthetics get better in the old series.
Something that I also noticed is there's an awful lot of commentary about the people on Chelsea 426 and the incomers, and I was thinking, this feels very familiar in the modern day as well. People not liking incomers to the place where they live, and just thought, this very much strikes a chord. And I think at the time that this was sort of all starting to bubble under then, wasn't it?
It's definitely the kind of Farage. It's almost like Farage world, isn't it? I think Chelsea what it takes.
Yep. It's quite interesting just sort of see the oh no, we don't want these sort here, and the sniffy looking down their noses attitude, and it's quite ahead of its time in a lot of ways, this one. I suppose that's one of those ones that's as a writer, that's the sort of thing that you like to be able to use what's happening in the real world and put it into the science fiction conceptual world and take it to another level. Yeah, which was definitely worked out well. And then, of course, you got that glorious cover. What did you think of it?
I do like it, yeah.
quite smart. I think it's the fact that you've got the Sontaran with the big gun and that lovely laser pulse coming out of it. So, yeah, some good work there by Lee Binding.
I think I said, nice to think I said I want to count Buck Rogers' spaceship on it on the cover.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look at spaceships in the background as well, and very serious-looking David Tennant as well. Did you have any dealings with any of the other authors who were in who were doing these books at the time? Because obviously you had all these standalone books in the gap year.
It was mostly remote. I didn't start meeting people until Trevor Baxendale. I did a book signing in London for Soldier novels.
Mm-hmm. I suppose must be quite a different thing for you when you've not had had them before, and then suddenly here you go, you're in a.
I think Gary Russell, I was in touch with. He lived nearby. I think I was more in touch. I met more of them on the 11th Doctor stuff. You're actually in a meeting up at the BBC to see the first episode, the rough cut of it. I remember there's me, Una McCormack, and others all went up to watch the 11th hour really version with the proper special effects in it at the time.
That was cool. Quite exciting. Yeah.
That was really exciting.
Maybe tell us about that if we get round to talking about The Night of the Humans. Of course, you got an audiobook as well, which was read by Christopher Ryan. Have you heard that one?
He did. He picked up on the thing that I made the mistake. I think I said Mark Antony wrote Meditations. No, Marcus Aurelius, not Mark Antony. I think you spotted my mistake in it.
Could he fix it? Was he contractually allowed to?
I noticed it when I read the printed book, and I said I noticed it. I said, and anyway, if anyone spots a mistake, I'll send them a chapter of Lollipop Surprise, which I didn't. He didn't take me up on that.
I like that kind of thing. I
think somebody messaged me and said, by the way, he's just spotted a mistake, and I said I did promise I'd send somebody a lollipop if they spotted it.
And did you? That's the big question. Are you a man of your word?
I wouldn't have known to send it to the time.
Oh, true. Yeah. Chris does such a great reading. His Sontarans are great, and he does a very good David Tennant as well. Most impressed by that. So do you have any other memories from the writing process?
I know it was written quite quickly. I was working full time at the time in the call centre, so I was tend to write in the evenings when I came back from work. When the chapters were finished, I'd take my laptop round to my friend's house and read them there. Read them out loud. That just round the corner near Gary.
Of course, yes. Gary does have a lovely house. I visited him. Gary and Julie Gardner's old house, of course.
That's it, yeah. I think around this time as well, I met Julie and David Tennant back on the backstage entrance to the new theatre when John Barrowman was in Panto there.
That's not
I
bad.
just remember seeing John Barrowman in these kind of leather boots backstage before he had to go on stage.
Goodness, that's the sort of thing you don't expect to see, because I think he started doing Panto in Glasgow for a few years after that as well. Him and the Crankies were the big draw at the Glasgow Hydro. So yeah, very good shows they were as well. So how do you look back on the whole experience with this book? Was it a happy one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
was it
in print?
Yeah, getting your name on a Doctor Who novel, and of course in the days when it was still the biggest thing on telly, and people were desperate to get more books. Not a bad thing to have your name throughout the country and people reading your work. So yeah, fantastic. David, thank you so much.
No worries.
Lovely stuff. Thank you, David. Now, before we get to the contemporary review from Doctor Who magazine, let's have a second reading from the book and hear once again from Chris Ryan.
Deep in the belly of Chelsea 426, the fusion candle blazed with the intensity of a sun. An intense column of white-hot flame channeled down towards the surface of the planet below. Around the candle's flame were metal ramps and walkways, forming bridges from one side of the cavernous space to the other, many of them passing within meters of the intense heat and light. At either end of one such bridge were gathered the higher-ranking officers of the 4th Sontaran Intelligence Division, while in its centre, General Cade and Colonel Sarg faced one another. Between them stood a third Sontaran, holding aloft 2 large metal staffs. The staffs were carved from end to end with intricate engravings, symbols and images as ancient as the Sontaran Empire itself. "Colonel Sarg," said the soldier, "you have challenged the chain of command within the 4th Sontaran Intelligence Division, a challenge which amounts to mutiny. General Cade, you have countered Colonel Sarg's challenge by demanding a duel. As is the way of Sontar, you must now fight. To the death." Cade and Sarg both nodded to the soldier, who handed them their weapons before walking to the far end of the metal bridge, leaving them alone at its centre. The general and the colonel adopted battle stances, and, but for the incessant throb of the fusion candle, the vast chamber fell silent. Then all at once, those gathered at either end of the bridge began to chant, "Sontar ha! Sontar ha! Sontar ha!" Cade was first to act, swinging out the lower end of his staff in a sweeping arc that hit Sarg in his side, before lifting up the weapon to shield himself from Sarg's response. Sarg ducked down and thrust the end of his staff into the general's abdomen, sending him reeling back towards their audience. Cade paused for a moment to gather his thoughts, and then charged towards his second-in-command, swinging his staff this way and that, so that it hacked through the air with a great whooping sound. Sarg crouched again, lifting up his weapon, but Cade leapt up and flipped over in mid-air, dropping down behind the colonel and spinning on his heels with astonishing grace before striking Sarg in the back of his head. Sarg lurched forward, clearly dazed by the blow, but recovered quickly, turning to face the general once more. They met at the bridge's centre, staffs suddenly and violently locked together, each Sontaran pushing forward with all his strength. Their audience continued to chant, even faster than before, "Sontar ha! Sontar ha! Sontar ha!" Sarg seemed to have the upper hand, pushing Cade back against the bridge's barrier and bearing down on him with his full weight, so that the general was now leaning precariously over the chasm into which the white flame of the fusion candle was channeled. Sarg looked into the general's eyes. He sensed no fear in his commanding officer, but the general was beginning to tire, he could tell that much. Sarg was the younger of the two, and he felt the stronger. It would only take one decisive blow to end this for good. Another violent shove, and he might just manage to push Cade over the edge of the bridge and send him tumbling down into the blazing inferno. "Give up, Cade," he said. "It's over." Cade looked up at Sarg, and, to Sarg's horror, laughed. With a forceful grunt, he pushed his own staff violently upwards, sending Sarg staggering back. For a moment they were separated, and the Sontarans at each end of the bridge fell silent. This moment's pause was short-lived, for within seconds they had clashed once more, this time smashing their clubs together with such force that the noise of each collision very nearly drowned out the roar of the fusion candle. Cade delivered a blow to Sarg's chest. Sarg responded by slamming the end of his staff into Cade's stomach. For a moment, Sarg thought he had beaten him. The general was now doubled over, clutching his stomach and wincing in pain. But Sarg was wrong. With a look of fierce malevolence, Cade stood straight, and then, with a speed that took the younger Sontaran by surprise, charged forward with an almighty roar. In one sudden move, he swung his staff around in a dizzying arc, tearing Sarg's weapon from his hands and sending it spinning end over end into the blinding light of the fusion candle, where it was vaporized in a nanosecond. Sarg held up his hands to defend himself, but it was no use. Cade was upon him at once, beating him to the ground. The general threw his weapon to the floor and with terrifying strength lifted Sarg up into the air until his feet left the ground. Sarg looked down at Cade, but before he could plan his next move, the general had turned and with one final triumphant bellow thrown him over the edge of the bridge. As Colonel Sarg merged with the light and the heat of the fusion candle, he almost instantaneously vanished. His last desperate scream cut off as suddenly as it had begun. Cade now stood alone at the centre of the bridge. At either end those gathered were now silent, looking upon the General with dumbstruck awe.
Thanks again, Chris. Now, let's turn to the pages of Doctor Who magazine, issue 414, where Matt Michael was the reviewer of The Taking of Chelsea 426. In it, Matt wrote, "The endless war between the Sontarans and the Rutans, alluded to in only a handful of TV episodes, is one of those pieces of continuity that is gold dust for spin-offs, particularly the novels, where epic space battles and invasions can be staged without worrying over the budget. The Taking of Chelsea 426 is the story of one skirmish between the empires, set on a space station floating on Saturn's surface, infiltrated by Rutans and therefore a prime target for Sontaran reprisals. The book starts innocuously, with a flower show to celebrate the discovery of a new form of alien plant life on Saturn. As thousands of tourists flock to Chelsea 426, the inhabitants, the futuristic equivalents of a provincial, small-minded community, are not pleased to have their peace shattered. The early chapters humorously depict a small town under siege, not by alien hordes, but by the kind of metropolitan, loud, quite possibly criminal human beings that most of the locals have been trying to get away from. In this, they are supported by the odious Riley Smalls, a sort of Glenn Beck right-wing demagogue who rails against the newcomers and the apocalyptic effect they'll have on the colony. However, there is more going on in Chelsea 426 than meets the eye. The Rutans, amorphous and underhand as always, are plotting a takeover. The Doctor smells a rat straight away, thanks to the odd behaviour of some of the Rutans' victims. But matters get much worse when the Sontarans arrive, and the human beings are suddenly caught in the middle of the longest war in history. Given their usual heavy-handed tactics, writer David Llewelyn smartly makes these Sontarans members of the Intelligence Division, and rather more inclined to let people live, so long as they might be useful, than to just blow the place up. Their leader, General Cade, is exceptionally patient for a Sontaran, though not only does he allow the Doctor to live, even though he is aware of his previous actions, but he allows him to keep interfering. This is perhaps a mistake, because though Llewelyn effortlessly recreates the military discipline of the Sontarans, their failure to treat the Doctor as a target means that for much of the book, he is more exasperated than generally threatened by events. There is no equivalent of his shocked impotence at the end of the Sontaran stratagem here. Rather more scintillating are his encounters with the Rutans. While the Sontarans are bred for war, the Doctor suggests that the Rutans engage in battle simply because they have nothing better in their culture. Like Chelsea 426ers have a stagnant, dull society, and they look down on the Sontaran hordes and hate them because they are different. Rounded out with a cast of well-sketched supporting characters, particularly the crusty Major, The Taking of Chelsea 426 is a fast, fun read, even if its cover stars are rather upstaged by the Rutans. Thank you, Matt. Meanwhile, over in Goodreads, there are plenty of contemporary reviews and reactions. The book has a rating of 3.80 from 1,094 ratings and 94 reviews. 5-star reviews 26%, 4 stars 34%, 3 stars 31%, 2 stars 6% and 1 star less than 1%, and it was actually 9 people. Come on people, chill out, have a laugh. 5 stars, Dale Russell. David Llewelyn gives us his second venture into the Who universe, the first being a great Torchwood tie-in novel, with this his first adventure for the Doctor. Set during David Tennant's reign as the 10th Doctor, and following the events of the loss of Donna, Llewelyn hits many of the regular beats of both the series and Tennant's unique portrayal of the erstwhile lead, while injecting a little bit of his own writing and characterisation into the story that makes this an interestingly different kind of Doctor story. One place where he really hits it out of the park is with the atmosphere that he carries throughout the book. Giant flowers, Sontarans, enclosed cities floating above giant planets. These have the feel of the BBC's productions of the Doctor from the 60s and 70s, mashed up with a Doctor of the new millennium. The reader can easily visualise the pieces that make up the main storyline and it feels like stepping into a Tom Baker Who set. Fun and fairly quick read. 5 stars also from Itami. Great book, loved it, can't explain why, but I'm gonna try. Maybe it was because of the Sontarans. I just like them. Not as those, haha, funny potato villains, but as an interesting alien species with their own power structures and way of thinking and stuff. Maybe it was because I liked the characters. The teenagers were not too annoying. They were right between cute and bitchy. The parents, the major, the mayor. Yes, we have a mayor and a major for half of the book. Stupid German me was like, damn it, can't you decide how to type that title? Yeah. Maybe it was because I liked the setting of the retro-looking settlement, the big flower show in the gardens, all the shiny starships arriving, the old-fashioned hotel. It felt a bit like a place where you could spend a nice holiday at. Maybe because the death count was very low. A few poor human soldiers, and the brutality was quite moderate. Definitely appropriate for a TV episode. Maybe because of the kind of clever theme of people settle somewhere, then more new people come, but the old new people don't want more new people, so they stop being welcoming and spread evil rumours about the new people, and a very angry loud dude tells the old people to vote for him so he can get rid of all those dirty criminal new people. Of course, they should have called the settlement Akurema to make it even more obvious. But, okay, this whole social pattern is pretty universal, so humans never change and history repeats itself is the message. Sad but true. Maybe because the 10th Doctor was very well written. He was cheerful, he was wary, he was asking the right questions, he was trying to rescue everyone, and he was not the godlike genius he is in most other stories, especially in the Moffat era. Cough. Let me explain. He does not figure out who the villain is. He is actually told who it is, and he's like, I should have known. Which was cute. Let me explain a little bit more. There are situations where he does not know how to hack into a certain computer system and needs help, and a situation where he doesn't know the names of starships and gets help again. That is how I like my Doctor, because if he was an all-knowing perfect god, there would be no point in him travelling at all. He travels to see new things, to learn new things, and here he does. And last but not least, maybe it was because the very last sentence of the book made me gasp. You can decide for yourself if you go and read the book. I'd recommend it. 4-star review from Megan. Megan said, I thought that the 10th Doctor was well represented in this novel. I could certainly picture David Tennant saying and doing most of the things in the book very easily, which made the story very enjoyable. The story reminded me, in a way, of the Waters of Mars episode, except these alien takeovers were more subtle, and you really had to pay attention to notice they were different. I enjoyed the Sontarans part. The one fight scene was especially fun to imagine. The ending was predictable, yet I still laughed at it. All in all, a very good instalment in the Doctor Who series, and one I'd recommend. There's also a 3-star review from Thomas Sherlock. Thomas says, This book has a lot of great content for the Sontarans, who generally really thrive in expanded media. Their leader is well characterised and their plotline has a great finale. Unfortunately, there are parts where the Sontarans don't appear. The rest of the book is part commentary on anti-immigration sentiments, as the residents of the colony bemoan newcomers at any and all opportunity, mixed with a somewhat confused written plot. Not sure what they were ultimately trying to achieve, nor why they were seemingly incapable of saying yes. The Doctor teams up with a bunch of kids, teenagers, not sure how old they're actually supposed to be, but they're written very young, but seemingly have jobs working for their parents too, who happily don't irritate as much as some kid characters in Who can. All in all, if you want some good exploration of the Sontarans, it's worth a go. However, we have a 1-star review from Katie. K-A-T-I. My least favourite Doctor Who book yet. Halfway through, I dropped it because I felt like simply blowing up the colony myself. Every single one of the original characters was unlikable, unsympathetic, or downright sleazy, and the story itself simply ran in circles, like a headless chicken. Doctor, it's the aliens. Original character. No, you're mistaken. Laughing idiotically while giant flowers spew dust and potato head clones in armour run around killing people. Good grief. Uber stupidity. I think we can say Katie's not a fan, so probably won't be listening in today. There's a couple of quick reviews for the audiobook as well from Chris Ryan. 3 stars from Molly. Molly said, listen to the version read by Christopher Ryan. Enjoyed the story. Thought the narrator did a good job. And also 3 stars from Michael. I keep reminding myself these novels are written for younger fans, whose exposure to Doctor Who is most likely the modern series, and not the classic episodes. This doesn't take away from the strength of the narration on this book. Reader Christopher Ryan does a solid impression of the David Tennant Doctor, and his reading is, for the most part, spot on. Well, there we go. There's 2 happy customers, even if Katie isn't. That's us at the end of another episode, at the end of another year. Remember to give us a like or follow or subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice. Feel free to leave a review as well. That would be a nice thing to do at the end of the year, wouldn't it? Yeah, you will? Go on, thank you. We're on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Power of 3Pod with a number 3, on Blue Sky at Finished Scene, and we have a Facebook group as well. So, for our last tune of the year, well, given we're talking about Sontarans, and they all look the same, they are clones, something that the Sontaran leader would say was that his troops were an army of me. So let's go with Bjork and, surprisingly enough, Army of Me. We'll see you again in 2026. Until then, I've been Kenny Smith. Bye bye.